So let's suppose I wanted to destroy America. What would be the best way to do it? Well, I'd first replace the education system top to bottom. Instead of giving students the tools to think, reason, and analyze based on hard facts, I'd give them a system in which everyone thinks alike. Deviating from the groupthink would be strictly forbidden, and it would result in a person being ostracized, scorned, and prohibited from even being employed. I'd erase all substance and symbols of history. Instead of ensuring that students actually read and understood the documents of our origin, like the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, I'd focus instead on pop culture, and I'd fill our history books with Lady Gaga, the Kardashians, and Beyonce. I demonized George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, James Madison, and Benjamin Franklin by never allowing students to see what these men actually said or did. I'd find any flaw in them, and I'd make that the only thing kids learned. I'd never simply teach that the country had some ugly chapters of slavery and racism, as did virtually every nation on earth. No, I'd pretend those things still exist now, despite the obvious fact that a black person was twice elected president by defeating white candidates, which, by the way, meant that a large number of white people voted for the black candidate. And I'd ignore that black people have held virtually every cabinet agency or another, have served at the top of our military, have advanced to business to become millionaires and billionaires, led the world in several scientific and medical innovations. Now, I'd seek to undo a system of economic capitalism which rewarded work and innovation. I wouldn't demand equality of opportunity. I would demand equality of outcome, which would mean that there wouldn't be an incentive to study all night for an A, since everybody's going to get the same grade anyway. Why risk starting a business based on a better idea or create something if working from early to late still netted you the same pay as the person who came late, left early, and never created anything? Hey, I just give everyone a trophy. No one would ever lose, ever. I'd also get rid of law enforcement. I mean, cops can get in the way of us doing what we want, taking what belongs to others and having civil order. If there's anarchy and chaos and people are terrified to live and work where they live, it'll be a lot easier for me to convince people that the problem is not the lack of law enforcement, but the presence of law enforcement. Oh, I'd use words that sound good to cover my real intentions. I'd say equality when I really mean favoritism. I'd say tolerance when I really mean intolerance. I'd say diversity when I really mean uniformity. And I'd say women's health when I really mean doing a very unnatural surgical procedure to kill her baby and ultimately do real damage to the woman's physical and mental health. I'd marginalize religion and brand all of its adherents as fanatics, bigots, hate mongers, and racists, because belief in moral absolutes like love, forgiveness, charity, sacrifice, and service, that's a real threat to controlling people and making them follow what they're told. Now, I'd never attack America with a bomb, bullets, or battleships. I'd just lie about our history. And I'd lie about its origins. I'd destroy every symbol of its legacy, both good and bad. I would indoctrinate instead of educate so as to have uniformity of thought. And I'd take away all ownership of private property and personal capital and give everyone the exact same thing. So I would be able to destroy the incentives that made people like me, who grew up poor, who worked really hard to live better, and with that, to be able to give better. But you see, I don't want to destroy America. I love America, and it's why I will not let her get destroyed.
All right. My name is Ben Burgess, and this is Give Them an Argument. I am joined, as always, by our producer, Forrest Miller, and in a little while, I am going to be joined by my good friend Ben Udashen to break down this booklet which sounds made up, but I swear is a real thing that exists, called The Kid's Guide to Fighting Socialism. Because as you just saw in that clip, Governor Huckabee is very concerned about replacing education with indoctrination. He does not like that. So in the interests of fighting indoctrination and having a kind of form of education that's not indoctrination, he's got this booklet that has helpful, you can see here it says capitalism, good, socialism, bad. So just so you don't miss the point. So I'm going to be talking about that with my brother in Benness, Ben Udashen, in a little bit. But there are a couple of other things I want to talk about before the other Ben joins me. So the first is a article that I wrote for Jacobin that came out last week. I think just over a week ago, but we have not done a regular episode since then, called "Want to Be Your Own Boss? Democratic Socialism is for You." And where this article came from is there's this whole thriving genre of be your own boss self-help videos on YouTube. And as I started to watch more of these, I was talking to one of the editors at Jacobin about this. One of the things that really struck me is that even though some of them are about how if you leave the grind of the 9 to 5 and you become your own boss, start your own business, be an entrepreneur, then you can. It's like if you ever watch Fraggle Rock, Uncle Traveling Forest.
Oh wow, that's quite a reference.
Well, I'm also very old, so.
I was a big Fraggle Rock fan as a kid, so I appreciate that.
Fair enough. If you watch these, some of the videos are all about how if you go into business for yourself, if you become an entrepreneur, you'll be making $2,000 a day, and you can get one of those gold like swimming pools of gold coins like Scrooge McDuck. While we're doing the classic kids TV references, but most of them aren't really about that. Like, most of them are about something else, and something that I think is pretty telling, honestly, thinking about capitalism. So let me just pull up a little clip here. So here we go. So this is from a video of Be Your Own Boss tips from Kevin O'Leary. So if you know Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, maybe, I think he's a Canadian businessman and entrepreneurship guru. He's somebody who, well, you can see him here sort of being like Jordan Belfort at the end of Wolf of Wall Street, talking to a room full of very hopeful would-be entrepreneurs. And he's giving them a little motivational talk. So let's just watch a little bit of that, of the story that he starts with.
I was working once in an ice cream parlor when I was about 15 years old, my first real job. And on the second day, I was asked to scrape the gum off between the Mexican tiles on the floor. And I said to the woman who owned the store, it was called Magoo's Ice Cream Parlor, "You didn't hire me to scrape gum. You hired me to scoop ice cream. And this girl in the shoe store across the way that's looking at me, I don't want to see her scraping the gum." And she said, "What are you talking about? I own this store. I'll do anything I want with you. Get down on your knees and scrape that gum." And I said, "I'm not doing it." She said, "You're fired." Last job I ever had. I owe that woman everything. I don't like to work for people. Many of you in here, I hope, inherit that. There's nothing wrong with it, but if you want to control your own destiny, you work for yourself. That's how it works.
That's this quite a story. I mean, I don't know if I quite believe it, but
Yeah, sure.
I think his preteen mind might have warped that lady a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, it is entirely possible, and I also think that somebody who goes around giving inspirational business tips is, not necessarily going to be the somebody who I would put that past.
Get down on your knees and scrape that gum off the table, or you're fired.
Yeah.
With the Kevin O'Leary erotic novel collection.
Granted. But I also find that pretty interesting because, like a lot of these videos, the emphasis really isn't on the dream of making tons and tons of money. That some of them are, but I think for the most part, it's not. The emphasis is on not having people push you around. The emphasis is on having some level of autonomy, having, as O'Leary says at the end of the clip, the ability to control your own destiny. And of course, people like Kevin O'Leary are very, very enthusiastic about the capitalist system. But man, yes, put aside any doubts you have about the sort of lurid details. That is that could be the setup for, and that's how I became a revolutionary communist. That is a hell of a critique of the capitalist system because in this context is willing to do that, right? That like instead of pretending that everybody is totally free and totally in control of their own destiny under capitalism, in this context, they are very freely admitting that if you have to work for somebody else, then that severely limits your ability to control your own destiny. That you are not a fully free person, which is something that thinking about this made me think of Abraham Lincoln had famous, I think it was in 1861. I think it's not like an according to Hoyle State of the Union speech, because if you're, I don't know, I never quite remember how this works for the first one. There's a complication there, but a address to Congress in 1861, where Lincoln actually says that there's no such thing as a free man fixed for life in the condition of a hired laborer. Now, Lincoln wasn't a socialist. Fun fact, by the way, he did. It is true that Lincoln had almost certainly read some Karl Marx, because Marx wrote for the New York Herald Tribune, which was the main anti-slavery newspaper in the United States.
They also communicated quite a bit, right? I mean,
not quite a bit, but he did send he did send like a congratulatory telegram when on behalf of the First International after Lincoln was reelected.
Didn't he also send a letter about slavery? There's like a famous story about Marx sent a letter to Lincoln about the prospect of ending slavery and like the imperative to do so at one point. That might have been the same letter, but
maybe it is the same letter. I'm only familiar with the one, but it's a good letter. I mean, it's pretty fiery for like a telegram to the president. Like, I think it talks about how the banner of his second term should be "Death to Slavery," all caps, it's good stuff. And also it's kind of amazing. Like, I think William Seward actually responded to it on Lincoln's behalf, at least. But despite all of this, right, Lincoln is not a socialist. Like what Lincoln was saying when he was saying that you can't have a free man who's fixed for life in the condition of a hired laborer is like, what he's thinking of is not that like, wage labor would be ended or anything like that. What he's thinking is, and what he kind of makes explicit elsewhere in the address, is that, well, you can work for a time as a hired laborer and then, save up for the tools or land so you can be like a small independent farmer or shopkeeper. And that's his like conception of freedom, so in a way it is kind of the Kevin O'Leary thing. But of course, as last year when Alex Gurevich and Matt Karp were on the show, those two historians, and we were talking about kind of the history of like labor republicanism in 19th century America. I think Matt Karp said in that discussion, even by the time Lincoln said that was already a little bit anachronistic. The idea that everybody could eventually become like a small farmer or something, all free people. But of course, it's certainly become a hell of a lot more anachronistic since then. And the point of the article, I mean, this is just straightforward. Look, if you really buy what Kevin O'Leary is selling at the beginning, that you can't be, fully in control of your destiny if you're working for other people, because they can tell you what to do. They can tell you to get down on your knees and scrape gum. Then now you have a problem, though, because even if you have an ice cream stand, by the time you have like one employee, now by Kevin O'Leary's own standards, you don't have everybody in control of your destiny. So if you really take this ideal that in their very different ways, Abraham Lincoln and Kevin O'Leary are talking about seriously, then you got to change the economic structure so people can at least collectively control their own destiny.
The thing though is also like be your own boss. Like it's an individualized. Like, it's very like the thing is like like the system sucks. So the only way to really is to beat the system and win. Like which is never going to be. I mean because it's kind of a complicated needle to thread, I guess. But the thing it's never like. It's that all these other people are going to be slaving away for wages when someone like Kevin O'Leary says it, but you as like a person can beat it. Like if other people are doing it, it's because they're lazy and they don't have the get-go to rise to the top and to beat the system. And it's never about changing the system. It's just about how you yourself as an individual can beat the system.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean that's the sort of core problem there, the core contradiction, because of course not everybody can be their own boss pretty much by definition. If you have a complex modern economy, you're not going to do that with like 280 million people all being self-employed.
Well, in the gig economy
you have the worst possible version of that, and also really you're working
you own your own car. I mean you bought it but
I should say too.
Yeah.
I wanted. There was a article in the New York Times about over the weekend about this. I think on Saturday. I want to say there's actually in New York there is there's a worker-owned rideshare app that's getting started. It's called the Drivers Cooperative, which is, obviously, I would prefer to live in a society where nobody's hard up enough to have to sell their labor as cheap as rideshare workers have to, and I'm sure even cooperative rideshare workers will have to. But still seems like a very, very good thing. I'm going to bring on other Ben in just a minute, but first. On the point of what most of the economy looks like under capitalism, I do want to play the preview from the patron bonus episode for this week. So this comes out for patrons on Thursday. This is Alex Press, who's a staff writer for Jacobin, talking about Chipotle. You had written a couple of articles about Chipotle. So the first, which the title gives people a hint of the perspective, is called Chipotle as a Criminal Enterprise Built on Exploitation. And then there was a follow-up that says that Chipotle is a nightmare employer. So what's
and there's actually a first one that came out in December year, which has an even more, I think, memorable title than even those two, which is at Chipotle, they ignore the rats and punish the workers.
Right. Okay.
About where I spoke to workers who'd been bitten by rats while working at Chipotle. So.
Yeah, right. So that's a good start. Tell me about Chipotle. So it sounds like even by the standards of like fast food chains, which are, is like not a good place to start. This is pretty bad.
Yeah, things are really bad at Chipotle. I didn't realize that when I first started writing about Chipotle. The first article, which was published in December of 2020, was because of a tabloid headline. I think the New York Post ran a headline about one store in New York City having a rat infestation and a worker being bitten by one. And so I got in touch with some of the workers there. And actually spoke to another one who had been bitten at that location, and it became very clear very quickly how bad things were. So just as a sort of microcosm case of how bad this is for employees, at that one store, Chipotle knew that there was a rat problem at that location, and they kept the store open nonetheless until that New York Post headline, right? And at that point, they closed it to the public. But according to the workers, they kept having them come in to clean that location, even as the rats were still there. So even though Chipotle obviously has a relationship with an exterminator, nonetheless, they kept having their extremely poorly paid employees have to risk their health. And the result was that 4 more employees got bitten by rats at that location. And ultimately, the store only closed it to them as well after a manager was bitten by a rat. And again, I mean, you have to go to the hospital when you get a rat bite. Yeah, this is not a minor thing. And so that is, I think, a very illustrative case of what working at Chipotle is like, now that I've spoken to so many other workers about other problems.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the other problems. Like this is it's already like when this first story happens last December. I mean, this is already, so it's the fast food industry. People are, have to come in, during COVID. This is long before, anybody's getting vaccinated.
Right.
So what's the, paint a picture for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be clear, when I write about a company, it doesn't mean that it is the only company with problems, right?
Course,
I mean, you
right.
mentioned that fast food sucks, and fast food certainly sucks in lots of ways at many different places. I mean, part of the reason that Chipotle is worth having attention on it again right now is that the city of New York has filed a complaint that would that alleges the company broke the law 600,000 times in the course of 2 years. And so that's the subject of the second article, and sort of why the spotlight should be on Chipotle right now. And so to paint the picture, as you said, of what's going on. So New York City passed what's called the Fair Work Week law a few years ago. It went into effect, I think, in mid to late 2017. And that gives some basic sort of standards and sort of, I guess, more certainty and stability to scheduling for fast food workers, and Chipotle workers count as fast food workers in New York City. So that law, for example, says that workers need to have their schedules 2 weeks in advance.
Right.
It says, I don't know if you're familiar with this term, clopening. Do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
So I remember working these jobs myself. It's where you work the closing shift and then the opening shift the next day. So you usually have, some limited number of hours to commute all the way home, which is usually a long ways away, and then get a few hours of sleep in before you're back at the store the next day. So the Fair Work Week law also includes that clopening needs to be agreed to by the worker in writing, and they also get $100 pay premium because it's incredibly inconvenient, right? You end up getting like 5 hours of sleep before you have to get up and get back to work. So it's things like that. It's not everything that fast food workers should have, but it's sort of minimum levels that were the result of a lot of organizing by fast food workers.
And 600,000 violations sounds like there was just no pretense that they were following this.
Right, exactly. So the response has been that Chipotle basically did nothing. And New York has previously filed a complaint about this, and they tried to give Chipotle time to readjust. And the new complaint says that while some efforts were made by Chipotle, there was really no compliance. They continued systematically violating it. So the idea being that, this employer, just like many others, does not like being told what to do and will flout the law and assume that, no one cares about fast food workers having their rights violated. So they're never going to have to, deal with the consequences. Who's going to fight for them? And so in this case, in part because of, I think, SEIU, Local 32BJs kind of strengthened the city. The city actually is, in fact, coming after Chipotle for these violations. So that's the union that organizes with Chipotle workers in the city. And yeah, so the complaint is, I mean, crazy to read. Like, the city is estimating each worker in a Chipotle location experienced 3.5 violations of the law per week, and is owed about $23,000 each in back pay.
Yeah, that is just remarkable. 600,000 violations. I mean, that's just whatever. I mean, we talk about this a lot in the interview, but I mean, that is just Chipotle not even pretending that they're going to follow this law, just like, look, we're just going to like continue to flout it every single day, and it's fine. We're not really going to get in that much trouble. We can get away with it.
Yeah. And I feel like it's really interesting also that it's Chipotle, because I mean, they are fast food, but they're like, the way that they market themselves is kind of more of like a premium fast food than something, let's say, like it's not like you go to Chipotle and it's like cheap food, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a $12-13 thing every time you go there. So the fact that like the working conditions are that awful, and like, the stuff is so marked up, really kind of shows I guess like a really, it puts it into perspective way more than, like, let's say like McDonald's workers or something, where like, you're getting stuff from like the dollar menu, and it's like they get paid absolutely nothing, and it's like, all right, like it's more understandable. This kind of throws it into a different light, I'd say. Although all fast food is exploitative. Like, all fast food companies are exploitative, but
does seem to be a particularly egregious offender. But now I know that there are people who have come up with.
If they could all just be their own boss,
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to.
Yeah. Well. So there are basically two ways of defending this stuff. That one, the Chipotle workers could all start their own little businesses, and I'm sure we'd have a functioning economy with every single person owning their own business. Or two, it's actually okay that they're treated like this, because even lobsters have hierarchy, and there are, it's very deep in our nature. We shouldn't try to fight it, because trying to fight, this hierarchy that we have this very deep instinct for is just going to lead to gulags.
It's going to lead to gulags, and you just can't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if
like,
you want to,
I want to end poverty, but it's just like, the lobsters don't do that. So I don't know. I need to work on my Jordan Peterson.
No, I think the first part was good, but but yeah. So I think on that view, you just need to clean your room and show up to work 15 minutes early and keep your back straight, with your shoulders squared, and you'll eventually get to be a Chipotle manager, and then you'll still be bitten by a rat. But now I don't want anybody to think like this is just we're shitting on him here, and I'm not prepared to discuss these ideas to the man's face. In fact, since Jordan Peterson said in a tweet showing that he had maybe read the article he was tweeting about. He definitely hadn't read the book it was about. He said that
it seemed like he was co-signing the fact that it was from Colette more than anything. You know what I mean? Like the fact that if someone from Colette wrote this about about your book, then
it must be good. He certainly hadn't read the. Again, I'm not convinced that he read the review. He certainly didn't read the book, because the book has pages of criticism of him in it. But because he did call me the best of the left, I pointed out on Twitter that really, if he's going to debate any leftist, it might as well be the best of the left. And I shared with him all the things I said about him in the book. So if he's willing to have that conversation, I'm very happy to have it here, or as soon as they open the border, I could drive to Canada and we could have it there. Just for the record, it has been 12 days since this offer was made. The lobster clock sits at day 12 right now, and
the clock keeps ticking.
And the clock keeps ticking, exactly. So get back to us, Dr. Peterson. there's no reason you couldn't have a good discussion with the best of the left.
Dr. Peterson, we need you to live. Every time I hear Dr. Peterson, I think of that fucking Ant-Man animation.
Yeah.
Crow or Raven or whatever. That's like, wake up, Dr. Peterson. You need to wake up.
Exactly. But since Dr. Peterson has not yet gotten back to us, instead we will engage with some other defenders of capitalism and economic hierarchy, which brings us to Governor Mike Huckabee and the Kid's Guide to Fighting Socialism. Real thing, really exists. We both have copies. How you doing, Ben?
Oh, I'm great, Ben. Great to come on. This is so exciting. Did you know that socialism might sound good at first, but it's actually terrible? They say that line like 3 times in this, and I have to say, it's kind of makes you wonder. Maybe it's actually not so bad.
They do say that like 3 times, and it's not that many pages long. And there's also, as I pointed out earlier, there's also really helpful in case you get lost in the maze of ideas being presented here. There are like helpful headings like capitalism good,
capitalism good,
socialism bad.
Yeah. They're actually like doing the like meme. It's like Orange Man bad. It is that level. My favorite, of course, is the grades. You as an ex-professor right now, obviously, but and as someone who I worked in a preschool. It's not, you don't really give grades, you just give check marks. But A+ for capitalism. A+. Wow, they think it's really perfect. Like nothing is wrong. Socialism gets an F, but communism gets an F-.
Yeah, I like the F-. F- is a nice touch.
It's very important.
Like we distinguish between the F and the, I've got to say I have entered in way too many grades in my life. I have never seen a grade system that accepted F- as a grade.
I've never seen that in my entire life, ever. We didn't even do D's when I was growing up. I mean, it was Texas, but we probably, we didn't have a lot of money for our schools, but
fair enough. So one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, why I immediately thought of you when I saw this product, is that you actually work with kids.
I do.
Yeah. I'm
a nanny. I've been a nanny for about 5 years. I'm a Marxist manny, I guess, or some sort. I've worked at preschools and nannying for about a decade. And one thing I've definitely learned, obviously, this is not, yes, please show us the website and there. We'll talk more. But it's really interesting because, I'm not just like a nanny anywhere. I'm a nanny in Seattle. Like I'm a nanny in, some would say socialist hellhole. That's what they used to call it back in the day when Shama Sawant first came in. But it's especially interesting to me seeing this because there's one thing that I don't know if other parents feel this way, but giving your kids didactic books and material does not teach them ideology or political theory or history at all. I can't tell you how many copies of Anti-Racist Baby I have handled in the past 3 years.
Yeah, I think I knew, but that I had blocked out the fact that Anti-Racist Baby existed. So can you review what Anti-Racist?
Sure. Well, that's the thing. Is this is sort of the this in particular, growing up in Dallas, the megachurch land, this is the didactic, Veggie Tales, but for anarcho-capitalism. And also, I have to say this stuff is I don't say this word often, but this stuff is very proto-fascist. Like way more than like, your average Trump shit. I'll say that. But yeah, but like anti-racist baby is basically like Ibram X. Kendi just like saying, we need diversity. It's like very basic, but it's also like, and this is a problem with a lot of kids literature. And it's funny how like in this very politicized climate, we have created a new genre of kids books, which isn't just like there had been this genre of kids books I have been dealing with for ages of the celebrity writes a kids book, right? Yeah. There was one, Kristen Bell has one about how it's good to be purple. Jamie Lee Curtis, that's like basically all she does now. She has like 6 kids books, One is like, is there such thing as the human race? And it's about like a foot race, But now we've entered this point to where now we have celebrity like authors and celebrity political people, and it's this whole cottage industry. And
so I mean, I understand that like the Ibram Kendi kind of line is that it's not good enough, or maybe it's not even possible just to be non-racist. You're either a racist or you're an anti-racist. But I've got to think if there's one category of human beings who are fully capable of just not having views on this subject, it would be babies.
Absolutely. I mean, I was with a 5-year-old. Like, he doesn't understand race at all. We will look at things. He loves the like all the PBS shows, and there will be a character who's like supposed to be from Latin America, and he just knows her skin tone, but he doesn't understand race. Right. And I feel like these books are honestly an even more like ridiculous version, because like kids don't know what capitalism is. What is capitalism to a 9-year-old?
Well, that's what I was gonna. That's what I want to kind of pick your brain about, which is like basically the "who is this for" question, because I'm trying to imagine a kid. And I guess they don't say, maybe they say in some of the promotional materials, if there's like an age range that they're imagining consuming this. But like
75, honestly, that's the actual age range. This is me and my wife. I happen to get other copies as well of other ones. I'm becoming a bit of a collector, but
the Kid's Guide to American Greatness, is that
absolutely? Oh my God, we can go through all of these later, but the Kid's Guide to Leadership, all these amazing things.
Well, I was just thinking American Greatness because I think that was like I think there was a right-wing like journal that was called the Journal of American Greatness at one point, because they were trying to line. Sorry. They were trying to do like a sort of like intellectual magazine, but like for MAGA. So it's the Journal of American Greatness. So the Kid's Guide to American Greatness is awesome.
That's about it, honestly.
There's this ad that I wanted to quickly play that very much shows who this is for.
Oh yeah,
let's show it, please. So this was like this. I was going to bring this up later on, before you ask the question.
And grandparents, great news! Mike Huckabee's education company wants to help your family to celebrate President Trump and all that he's accomplished as our president.
Yeah,
for a limited time, you can
they say that a lot.
President Trump for free. This fun kids guide will help your kids learn all about the president's greatest achievements. What's more, it's part of a very special gift bundle that includes a free kids magazine and free video lesson too. To learn more and order the Kids Guide to President Trump gift bundle, just visit freetrumpguide.
Honestly, I could have seen this giving to them at the border kids and cages stuff. Like that would like if Trump got a second term, this is what they would get instead of the Kamala book that they're getting now. But
well, I think that the hey parents and grandparents, like it's very clear that this is for the parents and grandparents of kids that are like it's selling this to parents and grandparents who are afraid that like education, like our education system is going to like indoctrinate their kids into liberalism.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's and again, and grandparents is just
that is the best part.
but
you give it to them as like a Christmas gift or something, or like a
because it's like because it's written in this way that's like on the one hand it does seem like it's written for like in a way, right? It's like it's written for kids, like young kids, because
It's like Highlights magazine.
Yeah, exactly. Like the format is like Highlights magazine, and it's very like, I mean, literally the headings are like capitalism good, socialism bad, right? So it's like it's being like super simplified. But on the other hand, they say all this stuff, and we can go through it piece by piece, but they use all these terms like government controls businesses. Like, is the assumed reader of this somebody who has a handle on what a business is?
Yeah, or what government is.
Or what government is, right?
Or like, or has even been ideologically programmed enough to us automatically associate that government is bad.
Yeah.
They also do the thing that I'm sure you have dealt with, and I feel like you've talked a lot about this, how they just say, basically, they do the old, like, I feel like they just recreate memes from like 5 years ago. But it's like socialism is when the government does stuff. They do that constantly.
No, they do. Like, and actually, that's also something we can talk about, because I mean, like, what
how socialism is anti-freedom, you know?
yeah. And what socialism means in this booklet is super unclear. But like, but yeah, like the idea, because I don't know. I was just, as I was reading this, I was remembering like times like when I was, I spent a couple semesters as a substitute teacher. So I was in like elementary school classrooms sometimes. And like, I don't think that like a average, like, I don't know, fifth grader or whatever. Like I'm trying, again, I cannot wrap my mind around who the age group is supposed to be, but like somebody who would be given something that looks like this, like, I don't think that kid knows what like taxes are.
No. Or they all have that like grandparent who like gives them $20 and then like takes $10 of it, like, this is from the government. But me and my wife were, because we got really deep into this. We've like had like, we probably spent about 4 hours going through these in the past week. But like, we keep on thinking that it's gotta be these are either for like the obvious target that I can think of, and this is terrifying, is homeschool kids.
Right. Yep.
Because it's very much for that kind of evangelical. It's like targeted towards it. They even sort of say that on one of the websites that like Everbright Media is producing materials for you homeschooling parents and as supplementary education stuff. But it's also, it has to be for grandparents to give to the kids while they stare at the parent. Being like. Like, you're just, this is because you're I don't know, God, like, I don't even know, like, you watch This Is Us, and now we're mad at you. So we have to do this. It's pretty amazing though. Like having these extra ones, you really sort of see their whole broad worldview. One of the lines is, the Civil War demonstrates that America is always trying to improve.
Yeah. Well, we at the beginning of the episode, we watched a clip of Governor Huckabee talking about how he would destroy America. And he basically just goes on this 5-minute rant about everything that he hates about, liberalism, and some of it's really weird. Like he says something about how, like, he's listed off all these things that clearly he thinks have happened, but one of them is like, I would have like kids not know about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and, and the Declaration of Independence, which, God knows, right? Nothing about that in like school history books. And I would, but instead I would focus on pop culture, and I would fill the history books with Lady Gaga and Beyonce. I was like, are there history books that mention Lady Gaga? I'm not familiar with that.
I mean, are history books updated for like the most recent decade? I don't know. Like, not with our public school system. God, I feel like my history books like still have the USSR in them. So like, this was in the early 2000s. Like the towers had fallen, but the wall hadn't in my book.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, there are definitely. But in there, he talks about how, like, oh, if I want to destroy America, I would do this and that, and I would, instead of just admitting that there were a few ugly chapters in American history, like racism and slavery, hundreds of years of slavery is an ugly chapter. Like,
it's just a chapter. I mean, maybe if the book is like two chapters long.
If that's a chapter, there's like an infinite jest. I mean, what are we
exactly
talking about here? And there is a lot. Yeah, there are definitely some things in here that fit really well with what you're saying about how it's for grandparents to give to kids while staring angrily at the parents.
Yes,
because there's a thing in here about trying to find the line. We'll go through this piece by piece, but it says that someone, it's something like the socialism might sound good, and you might have friends and teachers, and who say that it's good. So like it's definitely like catering to like the paranoia of the Fox News grandma who's sure that like at that goddamn public school they must be telling the kids that socialism is good.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed a lot was they were really into showing the fist. They showed the fist a lot, and I feel like that was like a subliminal like anti-Black Lives Matter message. Oh, hey, Jim Davis, you just came up with the fist. So, it was definitely like it is for this paranoid set who feels that the culture is against them and that everything is falling apart because of this goddamn, these evil unionized teachers and that one friend who watches BreadTube videos or whatever, or that one cool friend who watches Give Them an Argument with Ben Burgess.
Yeah, there we go. Let's just start out here. Socialism is a belief system that says that the government should control property and businesses. I'm just going to stop right there, because I'm 41 years old, and I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about capitalism and socialism and stuff, and I'm not 100% on what they mean by that. Is a 10-year-old supposed to read this and know what that sentence means?
No idea. I mean, I swear, like a 10-year-old, like all they care about is who owns the Xbox, who owns the Fortnite skins. I don't know any 10-year-olds. I don't actually know what they're like anymore, but I can't imagine that developmentally they understand.
Yeah. Socialism is an authoritarian political system. By the way, second sentence, we use the word authoritarianism. Like, are the kids supposed to? I mean, I guess they're supposed to flip to the glossary in the back, to find out what authoritarianism is. But like, I don't know if I were. I mean, writing this for kids, I don't think I'd use that term.
Also, aren't all the parents who give this to them like super authoritarian with their kids? Like, isn't this like the one subset of like parents who still spank their kids?
Right,
I don't know.
right. Totally. Like especially if they're homeschooled, right? I mean, like those kids like are like being controlled like all day, every day.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's like the parents have to leave for a while and they can, play basketball in the backyard or something. But so socialism is an authoritarian political system because people aren't allowed to own things for themselves. Instead, socialist governments regulate the economy. Regulate is not in the glossary. I don't think it is. Nope, it's not. So I guess the kids are supposed to know what a regulation is. regulate the economy by taking the money that someone makes and giving it to other people. Notice that so far the definition of socialism is like taxpayer-funded social programs exist.
Right. So they have like a very like right libertarian view of what socialism is, which is like basic, like it's like was like Hammurabi's government socialism under this? Like, this is ridiculous.
No, exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, there's no government anywhere that doesn't regulate the economy in some way or to some degree. So yeah, this is very, and again, they don't give any examples of these things. Socialists say that this will create an equal society where no one is too rich and where the government will take care of everyone. Socialists believe in collectivism instead of individualism. Now we get to the historical claims. Socialism is the opposite of the free market capitalism that America is built on. So,
sure. I mean, if you skip the chapter of American history where we literally had enslaved people, it's the corner of America, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like if free market involves people being free to decide whether to participate in the labor market, you think that chapter wouldn't count, which so to be clear is the chapter up until 1865. Right. And also, free market capitalism, which is the whole phrase, is in the glossary. An economic system where people and businesses can buy and sell goods without government regulations.
That's right.
So regulations, like there was a period of American history where there are no regulations.
Absolutely, Ben. Didn't you hear about the era? Isn't that what the era of good feeling was?
There are no regulations of any kind. Like
no, nothing.
Yeah, which is amazing because just whatever. I mean, it's a really basic point, but like I always think about this. Like when Ayn Rand's anarcho-capitalist hero John Galt, that like I always thought was hilarious that like she had the specific kind of business he was involved in be a railroad.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's like, okay, what does a railroad system look like in a country with zero government regulations? Like, because you have like one farmer in one place doesn't want to sell, and what does the line look like? Like that's
you just have a bunch of like you have like 4 different railroads doing the exact same path because they're competing for the quality of the steel,
Right, exactly. All right. Socialists don't believe in America's most important values like individual freedom, ownership of property, and the pursuit of happiness. These monsters don't even want to allow people to try to be happy. Socialists say that they have solutions to a lot of the problems in the world, but that's not true. By looking at examples from history, we can see that socialism has a history of failure and corruption. So corruption is in the glossary. Regulate is not. I'm just saying. It has hurt a lot of people. Even though we know that's true, this seems very defensive. Many people still say that socialism can solve all of America's problems. Socialism is more popular in America than ever before. So it's important that people who know better stand up and fight it. Kids like you are the next generation of American voters. I'm going to pause. Yeah. Okay, best guess. At what age do kids like have a sense of what voting is?
I mean, I was weird. I was like a dork. I was like 5, and I kind of remember the Bob Dole, Bill Clinton thing, but I didn't really know what voting was. I just like went to the booth with my dad. but like you don't really like understand. It's definitely like one of those things that you hear the words for way more as a kid before you really understand what it even means.
Yeah, no, that seems right. Like yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I can remember being like a very little kid and having at least some sense. Like, I know that, like, even when I was 4, when the 1984 election happened, I know that I knew that it was a thing that someone won and someone lost. I'm not sure if I knew anything more than that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And also, again, this is just reminding me, we can continue reading, but this is just reminding me of this thing that, like, not every kid is like this. My last nanny kids were definitely like this, where sometimes if you're a little too didactic with the kids and you really go in a certain direction, they will push back.
Yeah,
so
right.
like this is a thing that like I had a kid who's like both of his parents were like Jewish prison abolitionists, and he told me he wanted to be a Christian and a cop. So like, you know, it doesn't always work out the way you want. So, you know,
right, of course,
I worry about the efficacy of this.
Okay. Kids like you are the next generation of American voters, and one day it will be up to you to make sure that our country remains a great place to live. That's why it's important that you learn about what socialism is and understand why it's wrong. The more you know, the more you can do to fight socialism and keep America great. Ooh, all right. Now, got a little graphic here, how economies work. Capitalist economy, socialist economy.
Exactly.
An economy is a system for making and using money.
Is that true? That seems really wrong. Like I don't want to be like I don't know. I've heard like I read that David Graeber book about debt. So like there's a lot of controversy about currency, but like I think we had like economies in forms of exchange and labor without currency. So like I don't think that's true.
And, yeah, right. So that's one thing, right? It seems like you can have a barter economy, you can have a gift economy. Like economy doesn't necessarily mean that money is involved at all. Also, even if we're talking strictly about like kinds of economies that do have money, that's still a weird definition. Like that for economy is a system for making and using money.
Amazing.
Like is that like? I mean, I guess having a functioning economy of the kind that uses money involves doing those things. But I mean, I would think that like, for making goods and services and distributing like.
Right. Yeah. Like it sounds like basically all you need for an economy is just like a printer.
Yes. If you have like, yeah, exactly. But if you've got like a machine to print money and two people just hand the money back.
Is this what MMT is?
I think that is I think that's what people who really don't like MMT think that MMT is.
Sorry, I'm being what's his Doug Hanwood over here. Sorry.
I am politely skeptical of parts of MMT. I'm not going to shit out that much, but there are different kinds of economies. All right, so I guess at this point we've defined economy sufficiently, and we can start going into the differences between different kinds.
Good.
America's economy is a free market capitalist economy. No other kinds of capitalism are discussed, by the way. They just always use free market capitalist as like as a phrase, where people pay money in exchange for goods, which definitely, I mean, their definition of socialism involved taxation, so presumably in socialist economies, people are also being paid money. At least, I understand there are socialists who think that something can only count as a form of socialism if we've overcome the commodity form. Maybe that's what they have in mind, but that doesn't seem to be what they were saying on the first page.
I don't think they're familiar with left comms.
Probably not, no. And people can make money by working or by starting businesses. It's an interesting I wonder if there's anything that determines which people do which of those things. This gives people an incentive to work hard to be successful. The free market encourages people to compete, which causes people to come up with better ideas and inventions that make life better. This is a claim that you get a few times in here. It's also like a really weird claim that's like, if you're trying to like hammer something into the heads of kids who, you know, you rightly don't trust to already know what an economy is,
Right.
then it's a little weird that like the specific thing you're trying to sell them on is this claim that socialism stifles like innovation. That this seems a little advanced, but because everything in a free market economy is connected, unlike other kinds of economies, one person's success will benefit everyone. All right, that was the good one. Here's the bad one: socialist economy.
Before we go to that, it's important that we note that there are 4 smokestacks in the socialist economy and 8 on the capitalist economy. So if you want less pollution, you should be a socialist.
That is really interesting. I wonder if that was on purpose.
I don't know.
I mean, I guess
maybe it's
right? Like
socialism is part of the war on coal.
Okay, all right. Socialism is another kind of economy. Under socialism, the government controls businesses and the entire economy. Property is supposed to be owned and shared by everyone. Instead of competing on the free market, everyone is supposed to work together to produce whatever society needs. Everyone is supposed to be equal, and no one gets rewarded for working harder than everyone else, which I just want to stop and note that on page 1, socialism was like anytime the government taxes people to pay for something, to some service that they provide. And we're on the page 2-3 spread here. And now socialism means no one gets rewarded for working harder than everyone else, which, like, okay, if you read the Critique of the Gotha program, which is the place where Karl Marx talks the most about his ideas about how socialist society could work, he says in the first phase of communism as it emerges from capitalism, you would actually, I mean, Marx is very explicit about this, you couldn't have completely equal distribution. You need some people to have, well, I mean, there wouldn't be money exactly. So I guess this isn't an economy as they would define it, but you have labor time certificates, but like some people are actually, getting to take more goods from the common stock than other people because of the intensity or duration of their labor. So on page 1, the United States clearly counts as a socialist country. On pages 2 to 3, even what Marx saw as the first stage of communism wouldn't count as socialism, because you have to have literally no pay differentials or incentives of any kind.
Exactly. Yeah, it has to mean that everyone has one toothbrush and you share it.
See, that, you know, they should have said the toothbrush thing, because the kids
they really should have
that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, God, like, I swear, like, this is like a lot of Marx is really complicated to read. I just bought Capitals mainly so I can look smart. But it'll take me, like, my kid will be 18 by the time I finish it, and the kid isn't even bored. No one's even pregnant. But like, there are some things that are even simpler than this stuff, I swear, like in its specificity. Also, they don't do enough graphs or pictures.
What?
Kids learn visually.
This is true. There's not, like,
it's all walls of text.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a little bit, like on the next page, you've got, like, you know, there's pictures of pilgrims and there's like a fist and Marx, but like there's a lot of text and not a lot of pictures.
And all of the pictures are if the word socialism next to someone looking unhappy.
This is so incompetent. Since people depend on the government to provide for their needs, no one is rewarded for their work. There's no incentive to work hard or be successful. Under socialism, successful people are actually punished since they have to give whatever they earn to other people. In communism, the most extreme kind of socialism, people aren't even allowed to own private property.
No.
Which is also like, okay, we just had literally in the paragraph before, it said, in the definition of socialism, it said property is supposed to be owned and shared by everyone.
Right.
So now communism, the most extreme kind of socialism, people aren't even allowed to own private property. Like, again,
inconsistent.
I'm, you know, like Ben, I'll have you know, I've read books longer than this.
I haven't.
Okay, fair enough.
At least recently. It's been a lot of kids' books, so.
But I have, you know, spent a fair amount of time arguing with people who disagree with me about stuff like this.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell the difference is between the way that they define socialism here and communism here. Yeah. Like little kids are supposed to read this and get out of this. Like they like, why are they defining these terms for them at all if they're just going to give these like vague sentences that sound the same?
It's just socialism bad. Communism bad minus. That's it.
Bad minus, yeah. Okay, well, they've got some history. It's the history of socialism. Socialism started in Europe in the 1800s. During that time, the Industrial Revolution had increased poverty and inequality. That's interesting.
Wow. Brave.
So this is capitalism, and it's increased. Oh, okay, all right.
It was mercantilism, Ben. It's totally different.
Okay, maybe that's the distinction. Mercantilism is not in the glossary, so
yeah,
I don't know if that's what they have in mind. So early socialists wanted governments to tax wealthy people and businesses to distribute money to the poor. They also thought that workers should own the businesses that they worked for. So there's a lot going on here already. So it seems like they kind of want to say, like they kind of want to do two things at the same time here. They want to say that wanting to tax rich people to pay for social programs is socialism in itself. Because above all, the Mike Huckabees of the world like want to use like fear mongering about socialism as like a cudgel against like New Deal liberalism. Fair enough. But then like also they want to be clear. It's like, you know, socialism is really radical and extreme. So they have to say like, yeah, these socialists, they wanted to have progressive income tax and also workers' control of the means of production.
Yeah. Another thing that just came up when I saw that, it said workers own the businesses that they work for. Don't these people love small businesses? Isn't that what a small businessman is?
Be your own boss.
Be your own boss.
A writer named Karl Marx used socialist ideas to create a system that we call Marxism. Marx thought that the socialists weren't radical enough. That is, if you read like all of the places where Marx will write these long, detailed critiques of Proudhon and Bakunin and Lassalle and all these other socialists in his time period. That's pretty much the gist of it. He thinks they're not radical enough.
Cool. When it came to Bakunin, it was he didn't bathe enough too. So
that's true.
So you know that's another thing.
Yeah. Let me just see if I can find. Oh yeah, here we go. This is my favorite. Favorite Marx quote about Bakunin from a letter to Engels in 1863. He says, Bakunin has become a monster, a huge mass of flesh and fat that is barely capable of walking anymore.
Oh my God, it's like My 900-Pound Life, but about like a Russian anarchist. It's ridiculous.
To crown it all, he is sexually perverse and jealous of the 17-year-old Polish girl who married him in Siberia because of his martyrdom.
Oh my God. Oh.
Also, he's not radical enough.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because they definitely, that was the like, again, like that is a frame that I don't even like when people use that now. It's just, it means so little, like some of the times that can just mean like it's less feasible, like that's all that means. So like in this context, like the thing that like made like Marxism like the like most notable sort of ideological way for like labor movements and social democratic parties and eventually like communism was that it was like very grounded,
right?
And it was like not like it was it was like more scientific, more materialist. I don't know, I just find that such like a funny way of right.
And again, the idea that would be his criticism of all these other socialists, you're not radical enough, like that.
Right. What is this, some DSA caucuses? Sorry, I love DSA. Like, I love my DSA people. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, it does feel like that sometimes. He said that the rich and poor were enemies, so there needed to be a revolution to overthrow capitalism. All right, so a couple thoughts. First of all, again, it's like it feels like whoever Huckabee had write this thing keeps forgetting who he's writing for, because like I want to know. I actually kind of do want to force some children to read this now, just to find out like how they process some of these sentences. Like what does that mean to a child if you say Marx thought the other socialists weren't radical enough? Now explain to me what that sentence you just heard means.
Yeah, means he liked the wrong Ninja Turtle.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and the poor enemies, certainly an idea nobody had ever had before Karl Marx.
No, never.
Socialism would eventually lead to communism, a system where everyone was equal and would provide for another, which is literally on the page before the way you define socialism.
Yeah, exactly. It's so confusing. It's like, honestly, just don't even mention communism. Or like, I don't know.
Like if you're going to mention it, come up with some clear way of differentiating them.
Right.
But like, also, why are you even mentioning communism? Like, this is supposed to be like, you're trying to indoctrinate people who you correctly believe don't know what the word economy means.
Right.
Like, why are you confusing the issue by saying, okay, well, I guess I should be clear. There are different kinds of socialism, but I also am going to use the same definition for both of them. Let's see. No one should be allowed to own anything at all. Anything.
Wow. Not even my wife. Sorry. That's how some of the people probably reading this to kids kind of think. So
yeah, I mean, like anything, like toasters, toothbrushes, anything. Okay.
Nope. Close. We in communism, you all just put on one giant suit of overalls. Every morning, everyone wears the same piece of underwear.
It's no good. Yeah, under communism, some would contribute all that they had, and others would take what they needed. The only thing that would matter is that no one is more successful than anyone else. Just for fun, one of Marx's criticisms of the Lassallean faction of the German socialist movement is they were too focused on questions of distribution rather than who owns the means of production. But exactly. In communism, individual freedom and happiness don't matter, and no one is allowed to be more successful than anyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
So dark.
That means everyone has the exact same number of Twitter followers. Which would be great for my new podcast. So
yeah. Yeah, before we so in a few minutes we are going to go to the post game. I hope you can stick around.
Oh, yeah.
And before that, I think Forrest has some clips for us. But before even that, you want to tell us about that new podcast?
Yeah. So I started a new show with a fellow childcare worker and nanny who I actually met at a Jacobin reading group. We both showed up for the childhood issue, which is, I think, one of the best issues they ever did. And it's me and Bryn, and yes, Bryn and Ben on Ben's show, talking about the show with Bryn and Ben. It's called Red Diaper Baby. We are going to start doing more shows soon. It's it's about childcare, family, education, and capitalism. So we'd love to have you on at some time.
Of course.
We talk a lot. We kind of go through some theory stuff, some history stuff, but we also talk with people about their own experience working. The childcare world is a great place to see all the ways that capitalism is failing from, all the different ways. So
give us a minute of it. What's the
yeah, sure. So the political pain just said that I have agreed to come onto a show. Okay, great. Anyways, so we talk, for instance, about the sort of concepts of, let's say, social reproduction theory, and how it's a way that is for all the class and race and identity politics conversations that always happen on the left, it's a way to sort of get things out of the performative cancel culture stuff, which I know you're a big critic of, to talking about the ways that it creates markets and extracts free labor. And also we talk to cool people like Brian Quinby from Street Fight, and lots of different folks. And we really enjoy doing it. So everyone go to rdbshow.com to check it out.
Yeah, I went to when I still lived in New Jersey a couple years ago. I went to a Street Fight live show in Brooklyn, which is definitely one of the more entertaining podcasts. Which I just realized that was a ridiculous sentence that I was saying, because it implied that I've been to like more than a couple of podcast live shows, which maybe might make you question my life choices. But anyway,
dude, as a like recovering comedy nerd, I have been to so many. So if that's embarrassing for you, I am pathetic.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely one of the most entertaining ones that I've been to. They had Matt and Will from Chapa with them, and Matt had this fantastic story about working at like a Cinnabon, and they thought that he had like taken some money from the cash register, and like there was a point where there was like a cop there, and the cop wanted to know if he'd be willing to take a lie detector test, and so he's like, yeah, absolutely, I would love to take a lie detector test, because, toss the audience, I'm not an idiot, and I know that that's not admissible, right? So,
right.
It'd just be fun. How many of you here have taken lie detector tests?
Yeah,
and then by the end of the story, he's like begging them to like take him to the station, give him a lie detector test, but like they didn't actually have one. So,
my God, from Cinnabon. Oh my God, I don't know. You shouldn't have to do that at any job you work at a mall. I used to have to clopen for a job at a mall. Speaking of the part that was very interesting with Alex Press, but no, come on, people.
I know, right? Just so, yeah. That's which, by the way, we should take a moment here just to say that if from the glossary, free market capitalism is an economic system where people and businesses can buy and sell goods without government regulations.
Hello.
So, like, no restrictions on making people clopen. In fact, the whole thing where they had to shut down because the rats were biting people. I mean, that It's like, I mean, free market capitalism, which is what made America great.
There were 27 people in my city who got E. coli from Chipotle. Like, free market. It's great. Hey, at least it's not corrupt.
Exactly. Well, if you had, look, if Chipotle, if Chipotle wasn't bound by any government regulations at all, I'm sure that there wouldn't be, maybe there'd be like 28 or 29 instead of 27. But
yeah, totally.
That'd be it.
Yeah, exactly.
Creating government regulations, it just gives them ideas about things, that they shouldn't be doing. And by creating too many regulations, you're just giving these business owners, lots of ideas about how to mistreat workers. And if there was none, they wouldn't have any ideas. So there you go.
Well, makes you think. Now, I understand that, I mean, this is what we've been going over and we'll continue to go over in the post game is this is like the basic primer. The kids find out what an economy is and how socialism is bad, but communism is even worse, even though they have exactly the same definition. But I understand that that Huckabee also has is associated with this series some more advanced material where the kids can find out about, for example, the history of the Cold War. Do we have that clip?
Yeah. So this is a series of videos. There are probably 35 or 40 of them on the streaming app that I found connected to the Kids Guide series called Learn Our History. And, so they have storylines in this where these kids time travel. They've created a time traveling machine and they time travel to learn about history so they can write these reports for their teacher who wants them to write these really in-depth reports. And throughout the entire thing, every conclusion that they basically reach is America is great. When America wasn't great, it was because Democratic presidents weren't hawkish enough in foreign policy. And so I don't know. It's literally the worst videos I've ever seen. Animation is terrible. It's not even, I can't even ironically say anything good about it. I can't even be like, wow, this is so bad it's good. No, this is so bad it's fucking terrible.
And I have to say, in at least the first episode, which I actually watched, I airplayed it onto my TV. That's how dedicated I was to it. But there's a evil college professor who kind of looks like Ben.
Oh, fair enough. All right, let's give it a watch.
And now, the people of the world and Europe knew what the Soviets were planning. As a result, the Western Allies unified their German zones and began the creation of the Free State of West Germany.
And in reaction, the Soviets entrenched in East Germany. But for now, the Truman Doctrine of Containment has worked.
I don't know about this containment thing. It seems to waste a lot of valuable time.
We know from our studies on Reagan that it's going to take a lot more than just controlling these types of regimes to make the world safer.
So we got to do more with Iran.
Gonna take
Then
the
let's
CIA.
go back to class and finish up our assignment. One of our main strategies for the Cold War was the concept of not backing down to Soviet pressure, aggression, and threats.
Even though they were developing nuclear weapons and sending most of their army and military power to intimidate us.
We started with the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan, and lots of aid and money to help Western Europe rebuild.
And in response, the Soviets used terror and fear to control the people and take more land like they did in Eastern Europe.
So just trying to contain the Soviets wasn't enough. All we did was slow them down, and now, with missiles and bombs and all, they were just getting stronger.
And it all came to a head in Berlin, right?
Like we had in World War II, the Americans answered the challenge, and against amazing odds, we faced the communists down with the Berlin Airlift.
Berlin became a symbol of the United States' resolve to stand up to the growing Soviet threat without being forced into direct conflict.
Which is what we're facing today with places like Iran.
Right. The U.S. has to stand up for what we believe in, and not just try to contain it.
And that's why the Cold War is still important.
Oh, I love it. No, surprisingly, they didn't mention the Jakarta method at all. Wow.
They're shoehorning the Iran thing into it so hard too. It's
they
like
mentioned Iran like 4 times when they're talking about the Cold War in less than 2 minutes.
Exactly.
And that's why we need to bomb Iran right now.
Yeah. That kind of dates it, but also it actually it means it's totally eternal because the American right wing and a lot of the like center just hates Iran, always will.
Yeah, no, very true. Yeah, I was actually just thinking, like, I just read Christopher Hitchens' book, The Trial of Henry Kissinger.
Oh yeah.
And so where he talks about Indonesia and East Timor and Chile and the bombing of Cambodia and many other things which I would like the time traveling kids to do
exactly.
do a couple episodes. Check it out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess they need a special adapter. It's USB-C. They need a USB-A. It just doesn't work that way.
This one gets a little bit even. This one gets a little bit even more in depth, I'd say. They've added somebody. It's not just Iran in this one. This is their lessons, their takeaway from the Cuban Missile Crisis.
So what did we learn about the Cuban Missile Crisis?
We learned that U.S. foreign policy has to be direct, and our president has to be strong, especially today with countries like Iran, North Korea, and even China and Russia.
If you don't stand up to bullies like that, they'll just push you around.
So we can't make deals with rogue nations who won't stand behind their promises.
JFK made a few rookie mistakes that kind of made the situation worse. But in the end, truth and justice prevailed.
The crisis also showed why our president needs to have experience in foreign affairs.
In the end, the Soviet leadership had to respect the strength and conviction of our country.
This is great work, guys, but the Cold War was still far from over.
Are they in quarantine? Why are they all on the Zoom?
It might
They have
be
a time machine?
It might be a more recent episode.
That would be awesome.
that would be excellent if they were time traveling, but also in quarantine.
A lot of grandparents were complaining about the fact that they stopped at the Berlin Airlift and they didn't continue on to the rest of the Cold War. So like, all right,
absolutely.
We got to keep making
thinking that there's that parents guide under their link. I was hoping that under there was the grandparents guide.
Also, I think it's amazing that every Republican like you didn't see JFK in this, but every Republican president, like they have Reagan, and he's that kind of style of animation. I mean, he looks very creepy and is very badly done, but then you see like Jimmy Carter or like JFK, like and they like kind of they do an even worse job purposely animating them and make them like weird two-dimensional characters. So it's like all the like Republican presidents are like they try to make them look like majestic and more like that, and then like there's just like some dumb like bucktooth like Democrat president. Right?
Do they talk about Watergate? I realize that's not exactly the Cold War, but I just would love to see like something like that. Like, would they blame it on like Soul Train being on prime time or something? Like,
no, I think, right. I think the good-hearted patriots, who just wanted to stop George McGovern, from becoming president.
Yeah,
were railroaded, and you could have like a little cartoon G. Gordon Liddy, it'd be great. All right.
This is the worst. Wait, I have to show you the worst one. I was building up to this third one.
Okay.
I know we got to jump off this in a second, but I just wanted to build up to the one on the Patriot Act.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's now 2 months since fighting began in Afghanistan.
Looks like it's making a difference. They got their kites back.
My friends, you are back, and right at our moment of triumph.
Do we know you?
Of course, it's me, Farah. Ahmed? Farah, actually. Since your troops have come in, it's now okay for me to be myself. I can go to school again.
So what happened?
With America's support, the evil Taliban no longer control our lives with their cruelty and crazy rules. Gotta go. Goodbye, my friends. Goodbye, Farah.
Come on.
Where?
To check up on the Taliban and Al-Qaeda.
Cool. What do we do? The Americans have cut off all our money. They have captured the operatives around the world. How has this come to pass? Aren't some of these guys still on the loose? How are you able to find them, Simon?
Well, I completed a cross-reference of our database with suspected locations from the CIA and National Security Agency data at this time. And it led me right here.
Well, what are we waiting for?
It's down. No, we can't.
But they're right here.
Barley, we can't change history. You know that. All we can do is learn from it so we don't repeat the past mistakes.
Besides, if we tried to get these guys now, it would alter the course of history and the world could end up with a different outcome. And it may be worse.
You mean not being in Afghanistan?
Oh, I get it.
Still?
Is this their hiding place? It is. The U.S. and its allies broke apart Al-Qaeda and cut off bin Laden from his followers and his money. Don't worry, Barley. We arrested or stopped many of their operatives around the world, including Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the man who planned the attacks. He was arrested in 2003.
Style
The unnamed
icon.
Al-Qaeda did continue to try to attack the U.S., but America became much more aware of the risks.
The country improved airport security and created the Office of Homeland Security to protect us better.
Congress also passed the Patriot Act, which enabled us to be better coordinated when we went after Al-Qaeda and other terrorists.
Weren't there a bunch of attempted attacks after this?
Yes, but because of our increased security and awareness, they were stopped before they got started.
But that doesn't mean the terrorists won't keep coming after us.
I get it. Keep our eyes and ears
This
open.
is like
Right?
television from Starship
2011,
Troopers.
we found
You
and
wanna know
killed
more?
Osama bin Laden.
Oh my god.
That episode starts out where they can't change history, or everything will change. So they watch 9/11 happen, and the kid is like, I gotta stop 9/11 from happening, and he runs. He's like running at the Twin Towers, and then the Twin Towers just like the plane hits them and they burst into flame in front of him, and they just animate the Twin Towers. Which I gotta say, I think 9/11 deserves better than that animation style.
Yeah.
I mean, at very least, but it's. I don't know. It's literally like the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I like C. Money Burns, who, by the way, is one of patrons, so hence one of the best humans on earth, says, I love that they see fit to negotiate time travel paradoxes in the middle of this shit sandwich like that.
Yeah.
Well, no, because the ultimate plot hole would be like, they're watching this happen, and it's just like, oh, well, why don't you just stop the terrorists then yourself? Like, you're right there. So like, whoever's thinking of it, like, has to be thinking like, well, we have to write this in so that, they can't stop the terrorists in the story. Like it just has to happen in front of them.
Also, like, okay, I'm trying to follow the plot here.
It's 26 minutes, so
they know that that video we just watched. They're in the past, and they're looking at these terrorist leaders, and they know where the terrorist leaders are because they were looking at like the CIA World Book or something with like intelligence guesses. But those terrorist leaders are also still at large, so. Even though the CIA was putting out the information that they were using, the CIA was not able to use this information to get them.
The other thing is that they also say that the Taliban just kind of showed up. They're like, we defeated the Taliban, who just kind of showed up and took control. And like, obviously, there's no mention of the fact that like we were the ones funding the fucking Taliban for, you know what I mean, like for the longest time, like these splinter groups in Afghanistan that like. I don't know, like it's really funny to see what they omit. And they also omit the fact that it was Obama that was president when they got Osama bin Laden. Like they're very clear to like not give him the credit for that, which, obviously like
I get what you're saying. It's like it's hilarious that they can't even they can't talk about the Cuban this is like normal conservatives love JFK now. I mean, like they have, but they still can't bring themselves to just be like, oh, JFK did good with the missile crisis. Like they've got to work in. Well, he made some rookie mistakes. Ronald
Bay of Pigs.
They a big part of this.
I mean, I'm almost surprised that there wasn't like the Cuban Missile Crisis one didn't include like a little image of Barry Goldwater where they talked about how he would have, if he'd been elected president.
Yeah.
A lot of this also, I think, I mean, they're not just trying to indoctrinate conservatives, they're trying to indoctrinate Republicans, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make, like specifically Republicans. So like they're trying to, I mean, they want Republican voters. Like Huckabee is like clearly a partisan actor, to the point where even that video we watched, he sounded like he was kind of doing a bad Nixon impression whenever he speaks, like a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, so it's interesting that like, because, it's I don't know. So it's interesting to see that part of it too, like because it's purely culture war propaganda, like on top of being historical propaganda.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, it's so specific. They want the kids to know about the Patriot Act and why that was important. But yes, thank you. Actually, I'm glad we stayed for that because that was awesome. But we really do need to go to the post game now. Links on the Patreon. Gonna want to say before we go, on Wednesday at 8, Forrest and philosophy professor Ryan Lake and Jacobin staff writer Luke Savage and I are going to be talking about Eyes Wide Shut for the Wednesday movie live stream. So should be a fun one. Philosophy Friday and Friday. I'm going to Jen and I are going to be talking about Bertrand Russell's.
I love those.
Yeah,
you two are so adorable together. Oh my god, I love it. It's great. All the Texas talk makes me very happy. So
we all need to do some Texas talk in the post game, by the way, because I'm here in San Antonio right now.
That's right.
I traveled from Austin. I've never been to Texas before now, and this is like I've been here for like a week.
All right.
Yeah, and on Sunday, Gene Bajalan, Adnan Hussein, and I are going to, for the Sunday night debate breakdown, we are going to be watching a old debate between, on the same side, Edward Said and Christopher Hitchens arguing with some neoconservative ghouls in like the 80s. So it's going to be good stuff. Good stuff coming up. Join us in the post game where we'll continue to plumb the depths of Mike Huckabee's insights about socialism.
Yeah.
Left is best.